Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever that may be. Um, from Boston, just want to say welcome. And thank you for coming here to listen to what I have to say. Um, this is a very interesting case. Karen Reed, John O'Keefe, the city of Canton, the Canton Police Department, Massachusetts State Police, District Attorney's Office, all have some part, footnote, entry, involvement in this case, which is unusual. Usually, you don't get the depth that you're seeing here. Um, Recently, um, somebody has read the Boston.com article and responded with their thoughts and opinions, and that's cool. I love hearing it from anybody and everybody. Anytime I can get any piece of information, I want it. Good, bad, indifferent. It adds to that piece of the puzzle that's in your head, that's in my head, that's in everyone else's. When we're all thinking, what about this? What about the dog? What about that? All these different factors we all have a thing about. So if somebody has a specific fascination with the dog, they seem to know a lot about the dog, a lot of facts. How many times that dog's bitten someone, how many times that dog's bitten another dog, where they got it, when they got it, how long they had it, where it went. I mean, so people have specific facts about the dog, and then there's people who have specific facts about the vehicle, and then there's people who have specific facts about the law. So every one of us that are on the outside, we all try to contribute what we can to put that piece together so it maybe makes sense for you. Some of it makes sense to me. Some of this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's a whole different thing. So, what I'd like to do is give you my opinion, my thoughts, um, and read that article and give you some of the information that wasn't presented in the article, some of the information that wasn't presented um, by the other person who read the article. So, to say that this is the other side would probably be accurate in a way. I'm biased. I already have an opinion about the case. I'll tell you that right now. So the trick is to look at the facts independently, objectively, so that I don't have um, that one fact doesn't sway me harder than it should. For example, the dog. Back to the dog. The dog doesn't carry the weight to me as it does to some other people. So again, just ask that you look at the total package. Wait, look at everything. When it's all done, you gotta just think, is she guilty or is she innocent? If you can make that determination based on the facts that I give you, I suggest you go out and get more facts and do more research and read more of Turtleboy's articles, because everything that he's written is factual. It's true. It's there. You can go back to it as reference material. It's actually almost better than some legal material. Um, just the way he puts it together is excellent. So I'm going to read this article and chime in here and there and give you some of my thoughts and my opinions about the Karen Reed case. So I'm going to have to wear my glasses. So the reflection is going to be one of them things I can't do much about. Sorry. So, all right. This article is from Boston.com. It's made by Gretchen Voss. She wrote this article. And the title is The Karen Reed Case in Canton, The Killing That Tore a Town Apart. Okay. Did a successful South Shore woman really kill her police officer boyfriend? or, as she claims, did a slew of dirty cops frame her inside the simmering tabloid drama dividing this tight-knit Massachusetts suburb? So right off the bat, she's got some pretty, she preferences this story with some pretty strong claims. A slew of dirty cops. I can tell you now, it's not a slew of them. I can tell you who is involved in that process, and I can tell you if one person makes a yes decision, the second person makes a yes decision, the third person is going to say yes. Not that they're not doing their job, but this is what happens. All right. Snow had just started to fall as John and Karen stepped into the Waterfall Bar and Grill on Washington Street, Canton's main drag, on a Friday night, late January 2022, at around 11 o'clock. It was the couple's second stop after visiting another local establishment. O'Keefe, a burly, brown-haired Boston Police Department officer, had been living in Canton since 2014, raising his niece and nephew after his sister died of a brain tumor and her husband succumbed to a heart attack 2 months later. The kids affectionately called their funkle by the nickname JJ. Now, time out. My nephews call me Funkle, so that part meant something to me. How my nephews feel about me and how I feel about them. If John had that bond with these kids, it is an amazing, amazing thing. Also, from everything that I've heard about John O'Keefe, everything and everything I've read, he was a loving soul. I've heard nothing bad. Not one bad thing, not one bad encounter, not one bad experience, not one person's come back and said anything bad about this guy. Not one. To me, that speaks volumes to me about the type of person who we're dealing with, okay? So we know John is a loving soul. He's just one of them guys that everybody likes. Some people really love him, but everybody likes him. He wasn't somebody like me who doesn't have a fan club of thousands. He was that guy. He took his two nieces and nephews into his house and raised them as their own and cared about them by all measures, cared about them 100%. Now, he had a relationship with Karen, which we're going to get into here, but they had a relationship for 2 years, okay? A 2-year relationship. So if you're married and you've been married 25 years, I don't want to say that this doesn't really pertain to you, but at that age, if you can go back in time, at that age, a 2-year relationship with someone who you are into and living with and sharing things and going on vacations with and taking the kids with you at the same time. I mean, that's a family unit. That is a functioning family. That's a loving, caring family. If you can get 4 people and keep them together for a week on vacation, living, coming home from school, homework, got to go to soccer, this practice, that. Who's going to pick them up? After school stuff. They had that. So that was a working relationship between these 2 people. There was, did they argue? Absolutely. Who doesn't? Honestly, who doesn't? We all do. It's human. It's how relationships work. It's part of it. They had that. So for people to say that Karen was mad at him that night, sure, I can understand why. To the point, anything other than that, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And like I said to someone, if Karen really wanted to hurt John, the easiest way to hurt a guy for a girl is just to walk away. If she just walked away from John, that would have hurt him more, and that would have lasted longer than this whatever. So, that I don't see the the relationship other anything other than a functioning normal relationship. So let's get back to the article. Okay. All right. For the last 2 years, he had dated Reed, an equity analyst and adjunct professor at Bentley University, who lived in Mansfield but spent much of her time at O'Keefe's helping with the kids. So Karen was extremely smart. Um, Bentley is a wonderful university. Very, very hard to get into Bentley. I tried to become a campus police officer there long, long time ago. Bentley's very, very nice. Um, let's see. She had a house in Mansfield, but she was living with John at the time. She was renting out her house at the time, and I do believe that she was letting Carl Dougal, keep his vehicle in her garage for free, so that his Carl and his vehicle, his nice car. Um, I don't know if it was the same car, but there was a car of his in her garage that she kept for free. After John died, he wanted the car back and didn't contact Karen. I think he contacted her lawyers to get his car or whatever problem or whatever that was. Either way, that's how Carl comes into the picture. All right. Inside the bar, O'Keefe spotted friends sitting at a high top near the band, and he and Reed walked over to join them. Again, nice guy. Type of guy that's going to come over to you to say hi, introduce himself or whatnot. And he knew them. So he's going to be the friendly person that he is and walk over to them and say hi. I can see that happening. All right. At the table sat O'Keefe's neighbor, Chris Albert, the town selectman. His brother, Brian Albert, also a Boston police officer who leads the fugitive apprehension team, and he was also featured on a TV show that happened called Boston's Finest, where they just threw cameras in cars with them and sent them along the way. And Brian's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe. That name's going to come up a lot, so just remember that one. They've all been raised in Canton. They all lived in Canton. It's a middle-class town, some 24,000 people located 20 miles south of Boston, where families' lives and social calendars are often dictated by high school sports and weekend sports. I will tell you that's absolutely true. These little towns south of Boston, they're all just little communities of sports players, and yeah, it's a thing. All right. That night, as the storm rolled into town, parents in the bar had a pretty good hunch they'd get a hall pass from the typical Saturday grind of shuttling kids to sporting events. As the band played, the mood was festive and upbeat. O'Keefe downed beers while Reed drank vodka sodas. Lots of them. Okay, here we go. In the documents that I have lined up later on to show you, it's going to say that neither Karen or John were messed up. It's in the documents. It's illegal. It's what's been submitted to the court. In court, it's been said that neither one of them were drunk or buzzed or inebriated. You have to realize that the person giving that information themselves is inebriated. So take that for a grain of salt. I don't think any of them have had formal training of, field sobriety stuff. So for them to make that judgment, it's just kind of you go drinking with a bunch of people, you can tell who's had too much, you can tell who's okay. It's just one of them things. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens that doesn't need to be said, but here we are. We have to say it. All right. Um, when the clock ticked to midnight, it was nearly last call. The night wasn't over, though. Brian Albert announced he was headed home to have a beer with his son for his birthday with a group of people. O'Keefe wanted to keep the party going. Reed, tired, buzzed, and hungry, was less sure, but agreed to give them a ride at least. On the way out, O'Keefe grabbed a half-full cocktail glass off the table, took a slug, carried the rest of the drink out the door with him. Absolutely. That happens. Probably a lot. The couple walked over to Reed's black Lexus SUV, leaving foot tracks in the white dusting of snow, and climbed inside. Now, you see, it was a dusting. The storm was coming, and it had started to snow. That's what happens when a storm comes in Massachusetts. Okay. Reed sat behind the wheel, and O'Keefe plugged in the address, 34 Fairview Road, into Waze before they drove off. When they arrived at Albert's home, O'Keefe stepped out of the car. Reed, though, decided to leave. So, just for information here, Karen, who was in a 2-year relationship with John, who was a stepmother to these 2 children for the most part, she didn't want to stay. She wanted to go home. Other things I read said that she wasn't feeling well. And if you have if you went out drinking all night and you weren't feeling good at the end of the night, either you drank too much and you feel sick, or the liquor's just not it's just not flowing right, and it's in your stomach, and then you don't feel right, and you want to go home. Okay, that's how she felt. I think based on what I've read, she has medical issues, and she wanted to go home, go to the bathroom. Now she's outside. She's not going to walk in a stranger's house because she's a stranger at this point. But even if she's met them maybe twice, she's not going to walk in and use her bathroom. It's not going to happen. Nope. She's going to go home because home's not far away. She just wants to go home. So she dropped John off and waited until it was time to go. Like, when you have to go, you have to go. She waited to the point where, hey, I got to go pee. Who knows? But I ain't waiting here no more. I'm going home. Now, if that's the case, okay, and personally for me, sometimes when I got to go, like, I'm lucky to make it. My bladder's just not the way it used to be, and especially with the coffee I drink. Sometimes, sometimes you don't make it all the way, If that is the case with Karen, I'd be on that phone screaming. I waited for you and I didn't make the bathroom. I wet my pants or whatever. You didn't return my freaking phone call, dude. Okay, yeah, she's going to be on the phone wailing on it. She's mad. And she's smart, which makes me believe that she was mad for a reason. And she waited. She waited for him until it was time to go, until she couldn't wait anymore. And then she drove home. And we know when she got home based on that phone call that she made when she was walking through the garage. You can hear her heels clicking on the cement floor. Click, 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 click. So we know that. Okay. Several hours later, around 4:30, Reed says she woke up alone in the same clothes from the evening before on the couch, O'Keefe's house. From the living room window, she could see the nor'easter bearing down hard. It's started to snow and wind. His niece was upstairs asleep. His nephew was asleep over, but O'Keefe was nowhere to be found. I keep looking down. I have like a lot that I'm trying to just go over through this article. Okay. So she wakes up. He's not home. Panic, panic, panic. Where are you? After the blasting on the phone, all those messages, now she's probably going to be a little more mad at first. And then she's going to be like, what the hell? Where are you? I'm going to find you. So Reed says she thought to call McCabe. Her first thought was to call Jen McCabe. Why? Why? Gonna find out. All right. Reed said she thought to call McCabe to ask if she's seen O'Keefe. Reed didn't have her number, but knew that O'Keefe's niece did because she was friends with McCabe's daughter. In a panic, Reed woke her up and had her dial McCabe, who said she had no idea where O'Keefe was either. McCabe hung up and called Chris Albert's wife, Julie Albert, who lived just a few doors down from O'Keefe, to ask if he passed out at their house. So Jennifer called her sister to see if John was there. Now, John, who's this awesome dude, nice guy, Funkle, does his job excellent. Just a solid person guy you want to meet. Why does it say mortal enemies here? Because John had a mortal enemy. There was one person who John had a beef with, who he didn't get along with, or who didn't like him. So imagine this. Imagine you're just going doing your own thing, and someone decides they're not going to like you, and they're just going to start swearing at you, and they're going to throw beer cans on your property. And when you go on vacation, they're going to go up to your Ring doorbell and ring it and flip it off and yell at you through the microphone, through your Ring camera when you're on vacation, and ruin your day. You know, that type of person, if they come after you and they know that there's going to be no repercussions, but that person's got a beef with you, and what are you going to do? You can't go knock a young kid around. You can't go, what are you going to go to the 19-year-old's mother and father and go, hey, blah, blah. So John probably dealt with them best he could. Being a nice guy, I don't think it went anywhere. I just think John took it and didn't really rock the boat. But regardless. Okay. Meanwhile, Reed called O'Keefe's longtime friend, Carrie Roberts, who lives in Canton. Neither woman had seen or heard from O'Keefe. Where was he, she thought. Within an hour, Reed, McCabe, and Roberts meet up at McCabe's home and return briefly to O'Keefe's house. Piled into Roberts' car to look for O'Keefe. In the back seat, Reed screamed about her boyfriend being missing as a woman drove through pre-dawn streets of Canton, snow swirling in the headlights. On the dash, the temperature read 18 degrees Fahrenheit. So, what some people don't realize is that 18 degrees is the temperature. If you add the wind into it, it's a lot colder than that. And then there are some places that, like if you're in a valley, it gets colder. If you're on a mountain, it gets windier. Things like that. So in Massachusetts, your elevation, what town you're in and where you're at, actually dictates sometimes the amount of snow you get. Sometimes you can get 6 inches. The next town can get a foot. Just happens. Now, at this point, Karen's in the back seat. Where's John? Where's John? Where's John? Where's John? Now remember what he did to her the night before. Presumably, she's probably still upset. She's got no idea what happened. None. Where's John? She must be out of her mind with worry. Like, really? Where's my boyfriend? It's cold out. This is to my New Mexico friend. She'll know what it means. As they approached the house where Reed had last seen her boyfriend, she shouted that she spotted him and scrambled out of the car. It was pitch black outside, but on the left side of the property at 34 Fairview, she saw John O'Keefe's body lying covered in snow. Reed raced towards him, dropped to her knees beside him, and frantically cleared the snow off his torso. Then she lifted both their shirts and laid on top of him, trying to warm his ice-cold body. That's exactly the right thing that you would want to do to someone. You don't do that to someone that you're mad at, that you do not love. Jen McCabe wouldn't go to John O'Keefe and lift up her shirt and put it on him. Carrie Roberts, neither would she. Nobody would do that. The only person that would do that is somebody that loved him. And to me, that's it. That's it. If she really hated him to the point of, we'll call it outside relationship hate. When you're in a relationship, you can hate the other person, but you never harm that person. But if you're outside of that relationship, that person doesn't have the same value to you as she or he does when they're inside that relationship. It's just how it works. The fact that she went over to him and lifted up her shirt and lifted up his shirt and boom, warm him up, mouth to mouth, all that stuff. You can't do that to someone that you're not. Nope. That right there is something that you would do subconsciously / without thinking about it. That's volumes to me. Roberts, who had run over to O'Keefe's body, cleared the snow off his face. Reed began giving her boyfriend mouth-to-mouth CPR while Roberts administered chest compressions. So, Carrie Roberts, lifelong friend of John's, is actually on top of him, pressing down on his stomach, on his chest, giving him CPR and trying to get some life back into this guy. As Karen is giving him mouth-to-mouth. Those two people cared about John. Right there. Blood ringed his nose and mouth, and his right eye was blackened and swollen. O'Keefe's baseball hat and one of his black Nike sneakers were missing. McCabe rushed over with blankets from the vehicle to warm O'Keefe and dialed 911 at 6:04 a.m. As they waited for the ambulance, Reed repeatedly cried out McCabe's and Robert's names over and over. Her boyfriend's blood smeared in her face. Soon the police arrived, followed by an ambulance that rushed O'Keefe to the hospital. Unfortunately, doctors pronounced him dead at 7:50 a.m. Detectives began investigating within days. Reed was charged with manslaughter on suspicion of hitting O'Keefe with her Lexus. But that wasn't the end of the story. It's far from it. A year later, the court case would blow up on local news sites and become the focus of conspiracy theories that ignited protests. Ignited the protests. They were ignited. Ruined reputations. Yeah. Ended friendships. And divided the community of Canton, shredding the social fabric of the tight-knit suburban town. When they say the social tight-knit, it was a bunch of people in the know that were running the town from under these other people's noses, and no one knew for the better. Where are we here? So, they roll up on the scene, these three girls. Okay? Karen is frantic, screaming out Jen and Carrie's names. Now, when it's snowing, things are quiet and you can really hear everything. If you've ever been outside in the snow, when it's snowing in a small community and gone for a walk, it's really quiet. It's really peaceful, and it's its own thing. It's its own quiet, we'll say, when it snows out. If you're screaming, oh, does it echo? It echoes off every freaking little snowflake that's flying in the air that night. So to have three girls on the lawn, frantic, yelling, screaming, and no one wakes up. Yeah, we're going to talk some more about that. The where the body was found, okay? 34 Fairview Road. At the time where he was found, not far from the bedroom of the owner of the house where he got dropped off, where he was invited to after the bar closed. Remember, they invited him over? It says it right there in the article. They invited him all over. And then all the data also proves that he went there. Everything proves John was at 34 Fairview Road. If John wasn't going to go, they wouldn't have went. They would have drove home. But nope. Karen and John went to 34 Fairview. That proves that Jennifer asked John to come to the after party. She was texting him the address. They even talked on the phone on the way to 34 Fairview. They were talking. At 12:14, they were on the phone. John was there. John was there. Otherwise, we wouldn't even know about 34 Fairview at all. He was there. Karen was there. Karen dropped him off. Karen waited and went home. Now they find him on the front lawn, and they're frantic, which, of course, back to the article. For 3 days, after finding O'Keefe dying in the snow, Reed lay curled up on her parents' couch in Dighton, shocked and confused. What happened to John? She kept asking herself. She missed him terribly. Reed says she couldn't believe he was gone. She called a doctor and asked for medication to help her sleep. Stop there real quick. What else would you expect someone to do that just lost the love that she had with him? All of a sudden, the love doesn't go away. You still love that person, but he's not there. I can't fathom that loss that she had. 3 days she was around, and I'm sure, guess what? Those 3 days, she probably cried a gallon of fluid, didn't eat or drink anything, I'm sure. Couldn't believe it just it says that she was there for 3 days. Karen, it was all the same day. I just can't fathom that. One long, miserable day. What happened? I don't know. She also called the local attorney, David Yannetti, online and retainer services. When Trooper Michael Proctor, also a longtime Canton resident who was in charge of the criminal investigation, and his partner came knocking on the door to ask her some questions. This is 3 days after they come knocking on her door. "Hey, wanna talk to you." The day she returned to her Mansfield home, Reed says, she was in her kitchen talking on the phone with a close friend who lived in Florida when she noticed a Chevy Silverado pickup truck parked in front of her house. Soon, she says, about 6 other vehicles appeared. Then, nearly a dozen police officers converged at 7:40 p.m. Officers handcuffed Reed and drove her to the Blue Hills State Barracks. Reed spent the night in jail until the morning when officers took her to a holding cell inside the Stoughton courthouse. Reed says that she and Yannetti stood on the opposite sides of the jail bars and reviewed the charging documents. The medical examiner had noted that several bloody abrasions etched into O'Keefe's right arm, 2 swollen black eyes, a cut above his right eye, a cut to the left side of his nose, an approximately 2-inch laceration to the back of his head, and multiple skull fractures that resulted in bleeding of the brain. His pancreas was dark red, indicating hypothermia had contributed to his death. So when you do the autopsy, they look at how much blood flow was in certain areas at a certain time, and they can they know. That's a whole situation. The rest of the information contained in the official reports was even harder for her to hear. According to witness interviews, Reed had told McCabe she'd last seen O'Keefe at the waterfall, and she and O'Keefe had gotten into a fight, and she didn't remember dropping him off at the post-bar gathering at 34 Fairview. According to Roberts' accounts in the charging document, Reed was so drunk that night that she told Roberts in the morning she didn't remember anything from the night before, though she had wondered if O'Keefe was dead or got hit by a plow, and that Reed still seemed drunk that morning. Before Roberts, McCabe, and Reed found O'Keefe's body, Roberts told police. Okay, so Roberts told police that Karen seemed drunk that morning. Okay. Now, if she said that she didn't remember anything from the night before, I don't know about that. I'm not. I don't know. I can't speak to that, and I don't think too many people can. It was a night of drinking. They had nothing to do the next day. Everybody was happy. Yeah, yeah. Everybody was drinking, and I'm sure after a few hours of a nap, alcohol is still in your system, especially if you only weigh like 90 pounds. So I can maybe see her drunk in the morning because I weigh double that, and I've had experience with that before too. So yeah, but all this back and forth is what witness interviews. This is what people are saying. Okay, so if someone starts off and says, "I think she hit him," and then someone says, "Well, I saw this." Oh, and then I saw that. Oh, and then I saw that. So one person starts that flow, and that may not be correct, but it's easy for people to make a logical step, and then another step, and then another step. But that path is wrong. That's not what happened. We'll find out. I'll show you. Okay, where was I? Reed showed them her cracked right taillight, saying she had no idea how it happened the night before. When an emergency responder asked Reed how O'Keefe had his injuries in the face, the document stated, Reed said, I hit him. I hit him. I hit him. I hit him. Now, she could have slapped him. Don't know. She could have accidentally hit him. And this is inside the vehicle. Like if his phone had fallen down, like phone, and he had bent down and she bent down, they bumped heads. I can see something like that inside the vehicle. If he was trying to get her sweatshirt from the back seat and she leaned over and they bumped heads, or if she went to go get it and he put, what we don't know what happened inside the vehicle. So when she said that I hit him, people are jumping to the fact that, oh, she hit him with a car. Nope. You can't say that. It doesn't say that. Reed said, I hit him. Okay. This is, again, witness interviews. So people said that she said. Now, unless there's video of it, nobody knows. And this is what's been reported, and this is what people say. Now, these people, I know when they're talking about it, sometimes vehicles will roll up to the scene with the lights and sirens off. I'm sorry, with the sirens off. The lights will be going, the emergency lights will be going, but there'll be no sirens. It doesn't mean these vehicles do not make noise. These are all diesel. These doors are heavy duty doors. The side rails that they use to open up, the just pulling the stretcher out. Everything makes noise. And when they loaded them up and got them out of there real quick, you think they ran the siren? I'm pretty sure they ran the siren because it's everybody out of my way. It's snowing out, and I'm coming down the road, heads up. So yeah, I'm sure the siren was going in the ambulance. Fire truck, not so much. Still, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, people starting to get up, start their day. Not in the McCabe, not in the Albert residence. I mean, I'm sorry. Not there because nobody come out of the Albert's house. No one come out. Nobody. And we know they're awake because Jennifer made 2 cell phone calls to inside that house, and they were answered. So somebody was awake. Somebody was awake. Somebody knew what was going on. Somebody was looking out the window. Absolutely, positively, 100%. Somebody answered a phone call inside that house from outside, from Jen McCabe, sitting in a vehicle, warm, watching everything go by in front of her, watching John get put on the stretcher, watching them take him away. She's calling people on the phone inside that house. They answer it. They're awake. Doesn't say that in this article anywhere. We're going to keep reading. In addition, it stated that Canton police found a broken cocktail-style glass and multiple patches of blood in the snow near where O'Keefe's body had been located that morning. The Massachusetts Special Emergency Response Team, CERT, also found pieces of plastic, 2 red and 1 clear, in the same vicinity as the body. Items consistent with the broken taillight found on Reed's Lexus. The document noted that officials seized the car and found that it had a broken glass embedded in the rear bumper, a deep scratch, and a dent on the right side of the taillight I'm sorry, right side of the tailgate. And 2 scratches plus some chip paint on the right side of the rear bumper. Considering the evidence, police and prosecutors concluded Reed was intoxicated when she backed up, struck her boyfriend, and then drove off into the night. That's what they put together. So you have witness interviews that say they were all out drinking. Nobody disputes that fact. You have witness interviews that Karen drove to 34 Fairview, and we know John was in the vehicle. We know he's there. We know she's there. We know he was found there. They found that there was a cracked tail light, and they went from there. They didn't think of anything else. That was it. It's going right on the. They focused right on that tail light. They seen it a million times before. Yeah. So yeah, it's implausible for them not to wake up. Now, the night prior, and let me just pause right here, see if I can pull this up. Night prior, they, when I say they, the people that were at 34 Fairview, they at the stage say, where is it? Right rear tail light was shattered and pieces missing from the red and clear areas. This is the first time they say anywhere that the light is shattered. Everywhere else, it is referred to as cracked. In the morning, when Karen picked up the girls, she said, "Look, my taillight's cracked. I don't know what happened." Jen McCabe, Kerry Roberts, both admit, and it's in this document, in these documents that I have here, they both admit that the taillight was cracked. It's not shattered. It wasn't broken. They both used the word cracked. If there was a missing piece of that taillight, both women would have said it's cracked and missing some stuff or missing pieces out of it. Neither one of them said that it was missing anything. They both said it was cracked. Only the trooper writing this report wrote the word shattered. Shattered that's a big stretch. And now there are pieces missing from the red and clear areas in the report here. Members of the CERT team located a black Nike sneaker with white Nike logo on the side. The sneaker located by CERT matches the one sneaker of the victim wearing at the time he was transported EMS by Good Samaritan. Same 2 red plastic pieces of taillight were discovered, consistent with missing pieces on Karen Reed's black Lexus SUV. 1 piece of clear piece of taillight was located in the same area, consistent with broken taillight. Huh. Now, this is also awesome. Matthew, Jen McCabe's husband, Matthew was looking out the front door and described the SUV initially parked in front of the house. Matthew looked out a window and observed the same vehicle had moved towards the right side of the property from Matthew's vantage point inside and through the front door. The vehicle was to the right side of the property if looking at the house from the street. Matthew's last sighting of the vehicle on Fairview Road was in the area where the victim was discovered. Now, Matthew, right here, who's looking out the door in the front window, saw a V in the snow that's consistent with a 3-point turn. Karen's doing a 3-point turn. Karen stated as she dropped the victim off, she made a 3-point turn in the street and left. Karen did not see the victim enter the house. Karen told investigators she first observed the broken taillight in the morning and did not know how she broke it last night. Now, this part right here, Karen stated as she dropped the victim off, she made a 3-point turn in the street and left. Karen said that? Like, really? Or did Matt McCabe say that? Matt McCabe definitely said 3-point turn. Matt McCabe saw the V in the snow. And now Karen said she made a 3-point turn? Karen stated prior that she didn't remember anything. She sure didn't remember 3-point turn. Who does? No. Yeah. What's this one here? Oh, let's go back to the article. I'm sorry. In the holding cell, no sooner had Reed and her attorney read the evidence being marshaled against her than a bailiff came for Reed. He led her, wide-eyed and terrified, obviously, into Stoughton District Court where O'Keefe's family and dozens of friends and fellow Boston cops, including uniformed BPD Superintendent-in-Chief Gregory Long, packed the courtroom. On the other side of the aisle, Reed's mother prayed as the judge arraigned her daughter on manslaughter charge. Then Reed entered her plea not guilty. Afterward, Yannetti told reporters outside the courthouse that his client was in shock and that O'Keefe's death had been an innocent accident. Reed had no criminal intent and said she loved this man. She is devastated. I believe that. I believe that to be true. I believe that someone that's curled up on the couch, doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, just cries for 3 days, loves somebody. And that person is devastated. That's what a devastated person looks like, people. She was there. Probably the lowest point in her life. And she didn't even do anything wrong. That's the beauty of it all. They made this all up so that she could be like that. And then they throw her into court and jail and throw these charges at her just to make her just make it go away. Just make it stop. Make it stop. This is too much. I quit. I can't. What do I got to do to make it go away? As you're going to find out, that's not how she rolls. Nope. So, before I go, I want to kind of read something here. This is what happens. An accident, incident, something that requires the police or fire. Something happens. They call 911. 911 will dispatch the patrolman on duty to that call to find out what's going on. Patrolman on the scene, find out what it is, and determine what the problem is and what needs to go or what direction that situation needs to go in. Is it domestic? Is it somebody with a gun? Is it somebody fell down? Is it someone doesn't feel well? Is it, who knows? You don't know. It's just this time they knew. Patrolman Sharif and Mulaney, I believe, were on duty. And they find out that John was hit, whatnot. They took him away. They know that they have a victim. They don't know exactly what happened. We just know that they come up on a body here. The detective, the sergeant on duty, comes up next. That is Lieutenant Paul Gallagher and Sergeant Lang. They determined it was a crime. not a natural death, not an accident. You know, he wasn't under a tree and the tree fell and hit him. No. They find out it's a crime. They had solo cups they used to collect evidence because there was blood droplets in the snow. So they scooped up the snow with the blood in it, I guess as best they could. I wonder if they heard a dog barking because earlier in the night in the documents, Brian Albert took his dog and put his dog downstairs because his dog was barking too much. So we know the dog likes to bark. And we know Brian Albert put the dog downstairs in the documents. So when they were looking for these items, right around where John was found, did they hear a dog barking? I'm curious to know. So the detectives and the sergeants who were on scene, okay, now they determine it's a crime. Went from accident, 911, to the patrolman, call the sergeant detectives, sergeant on duty. It can just be the highest ranking sergeant. At that point, they determine it was a crime. They make the determination where it goes next. At that point, they call the chief. Boom. Anytime you have a death, the chief has to be notified. Like it's in the policies and procedures. So you hear back, you have to call the chief. Question is, which chief did they call? We don't know that. I don't. I can't find that anywhere. I don't know who they called. Now, two things you need to know that are facts. There's Chief 1, who is on medical leave, out of the picture, removed. You have the temporary chief standing in. Her name is Helena Rafferty. She's the chief right now because the other one's on medical, then retired. Of course, he retired. He's involved in this. So Helena Rafferty now is in charge, and she inherited this case. But Helena Rafferty has been there long enough, and Helena Rafferty was the deputy chief. So Helena Rafferty knows about this. So she can't say this was thrown on her lap because she's known about this from the first 911 call. She was involved in this. Now, the chief that was on medical leave, okay, he was with the person who owned the house that whole day, okay, drinking. They all went to New York to a funeral, and they were drinking all day. The chief that's on medical leave went to New York, drank all day with these two other boys, drove back to New York from Canton to New York is a 3.5-hour drive, drinking. And then they went to the funeral, and then they were probably drinking on the way back, 3.5 hours. And then they went out drinking that night. More hours, more drinking. But the old chief was with the homeowner and somebody else, Brian Higgins, all went to New York, drinking all day, drive back to Canton. They all go out for the night. This chief goes and retires for the night, wherever. Because he's like on medical, so he's out of the picture. So from the time it says there's an unnatural death, call the chief. The chief at that point notifies state police. State police. I have a question about that, and I'm not sure I should even ask it. Curious to know if Michael Proctor was called before 6 p.m. I want to know what time Michael Proctor's shift started. I want to know if somebody called Michael Proctor before he started work. Curious. So, Michael Proctor now is the lead investigator of this case. Michael Proctor lives in Canton. In court documents that I don't know if I have that specific one. In court documents, Lally says he is not conflicted, and Michael Proctor does not know anybody involved in this case. If you put a picture of two girls up there, one is Jen McCabe's daughter. The other girl in the front isn't, but she's in the picture. So there's three girls and one trooper. Two of them belong to Mrs. McCabe. The trooper belongs to the trooper. That leaves one more person. That one girl is someone else's kid. Proctor knows all of the women in their photo, all of the little girls. He knows all of them. But yet, absolutely true to form, Michael Lally went to court and said, that child is not Jennifer McCabe's. There is that child that Proctor does not related. Proctor is not related to that. That's his niece, and they're not related, or that's regardless. In court, Lally said that girl is not Jennifer McCabe's, and he's right. He's absolutely right. But the other two are. So how can you say he's not conflicted? The other two girls in the picture are McCabe's. That's him. That's Proctor. That other third girl, who cares? That's the one you're saying is not related. Geez, thank you. We knew that. Hello, guy. You new to the party here, Lally. So, from the police detective, their boss, obviously, is a district attorney. And I think Sergeant Tully, works for the district attorney's office, so that you have a member of the state police in the district attorney's office. And I did a video. Imagine showing up to play the page. This guy's wonderful. My God, he put in I love this guy. I interviewed him on Canton Confidential during the last Selectmen's rally. If the Patriots showed up to play and everybody on the sidelines was in Patriots gear and the officials were wearing Patriots gear, same as the Patriots, and the linesmen and everybody was wearing Patriots gear except the opposing team, and they show up, and it'd be a little intimidating, I would think. It's everyone is against that one person, and that's how Karen Read must have felt. You have all these people up against little old me. Wow. Now, he goes to Morrissey's office. Morrissey makes a statement. Says, y'all got to shut up. Y'all too loud. So, again, like I started off, every piece has a problem. You start with the problem. Let's do this for a second. Start with whatever the issue is. Goes to the 911 operator. And the person who answers that phone, yeah, we'll talk about that in another thing. Patrolman, she dispatches the patrolman. Patrolman say, you need to get a sergeant or a detective because there's something happened here. Detective sergeant on scene. This point's blank in there. Use solo cups. They missed the items. They missed his shoe. They missed his hat. And did they hear a dog barking? Well, these guys here now determine that it's a crime. It then goes to the chief. Call the chief. From the chief, which chief did they call? Don't know. From there, it goes to the state police. No conflict, state police. Like, no. And then it goes to their boss, who I think is Tully. I'm not sure. But he works in the Morrissey's office, and he told us all to shut up. So if you had all these people against you, yeah, no. So there's a problem here. There's a problem here. There's a problem here. Which chief? We don't know. The one that was on retirement, the one that retired, the one that was on medical leave, that was nowhere. He decided one day to drive by the scene, and he found more taillight evidence out of the blue. He did it he just found them. And then we get to the state police where there's no conflict, and there's a problem here. And then we get to here, and then Morrissey's office says, shut up. There's a problem in every part of this. This is not how an investigation goes. This is not how a murder investigation goes. This is not how a murder investigation of a Boston cop goes. It's not how it goes in any way. No. So, in the mounds of snow, they find the glass and the blood later that morning. Okay? The Canton Police Department found glass and blood. They used leaf blowers, okay, in the mounds of snow. Now, leaf blower. Leaf blower. Can I do this? What am I going to do? Let's do this one. So, the World Health Organization suggests that a healthy daytime indoor noise level should fall around 55 decibels. However, leaf blowers typically have operated between 70 and 90 decibels. These things are freaking loud. Sound level 75. Gas-powered lawnmowers range from 82 to 90. Leaf blowers go from 80 to 92. They used leaf blowers. Okay. Outside the bedroom window of a trained professional, long time. One of the best, right? Boston's finest. Boston's finest. Sleeping. Got a leaf blower right outside the window. You know them leaf blowers? It's what they used to find the glass. Clear, broken cocktail glass. Stuff you can see through, clear. Like this lens, clear glass. They found that. Pretty good. Getting cops. They found that. And they also found the blood. They scooped it up before it melted. I don't know what else you're going to do. That's what happened. Yeah. Back to the article. It wasn't long before a far more sinister theory of what happened began to emerge. On his drive home after the arraignment, Unetti said, he returned a call to a tipster who had previously called his office. A man with a gravelly voice, who initially offered up a fake name, picked up the phone and told Unetti, as he recalled, something to the effect of, your client is innocent. John was beaten up by Brian Albert and his nephew. They broke his nose, and when O'Keefe didn't come to, Brian and a federal agent dumped his body on the front lawn. Why would someone say that? Why would somebody say that about, again, need to go back to facts. Why would they say that about John, who's a loving soul? John, the Funkle, John, the guy that probably always had a smile on his face. You can probably, I think he would always just have that little smirky smile. Yeah. Like, who would say something of the sort out of the blue? Yeah. Unetti didn't know what to think. Was this even plausibly thought about the people at the after party that night? Thought about that. Brian Albert, the homeowner, was a prominent Boston cop. He was also a federal law enforcement officer at 34 Fairview that night. Brian Higgins, special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, with whom both O'Keefe and Reed were friendly. So, I know Brian Higgins was an ATF agent, and from the stuff that I've heard and the people I've spoken to, Brian Higgins was an exemplary ATF agent. He was above and beyond anything you could ask for when it came for somebody who did ATF type of stuff. Okay. He was, again, like Karen was made for her knowledge in the finance part. Okay. She was something. She was special. That's why they, Bentley doesn't take average people. Sorry. Um, but Karen was just a little different in a good way. And Brian Higgins and everything was just as good in his way, in his job, in everything he did. I heard nothing but good things about him. But how could that, Eddie's thinking, how could that be possible? You have a Boston cop and an ATF agent. They're not going to let another Boston cop die. It doesn't make sense. But again, like a good lawyer, he has to follow every single lead. Given the new information, Yannetti and Reed say they begin to believe Reed was being framed. They hired a private investigator to knock on doors in Canton. Most people turned them away, but the Canton resident Tom Beatty, a friend of both O'Keefe and Reed, offered up a new tidbit. His daughter, who was friends with Brian Albert's nephew, Colin Albert, said Colin had been at 34 Fairview the night that O'Keefe died. That's funny because we're being told by the other side that Colin wasn't in the house. He wasn't there. Colin wasn't in the house. But now someone's saying that, hey, Colin was in the house. Colin was in the house. He's in the house, boys. When Reed heard this, she says, the news transported her back to a night during the spring of 2020 when O'Keefe's home security alarm went off. He jumped out of bed. She followed him down the stairs. And she says she remembered seeing Colin Albert and several teens in the front yard. Go fuck yourself, Reed. Remember Colin yelling at O'Keefe. Get the fuck out of here. She recalled her boyfriend replied the next morning. She says the couple awoke to a dozen empty Bud Light cans thrown in the bushes. The police were never called, but from then on, she says there was bad blood between Colin and O'Keefe. In fact, she now adds Colin was the person with whom O'Keefe ever had issues. Yeah, I believe that to be 100% true. I don't think anybody disputes that. Again, another fact. Colin being an asshole to the guy that owns the house, coming at him. What's he going to do? Especially he's being a cop. He being a cop, you can't go and you kind of got to just brush it off and suck it up and deal with it and just say whatever, kid. It's what you got to do. Young 19, 20. You're not going to go and smack. You just kind of let it go. Kid's going to get bored and go away. So after hearing that Colin Albert had been present at 34 Fairview, Reed says, another apparent clue in the case soon appeared when Reed and her father, William, met with Yannetti in his office. For the first time, Reed saw photos of O'Keefe's body. She must have been in shock the first time she saw him when she ran up to him when she first found him in the ground. She could barely draw her breath. Sorry. She could barely draw a breath, she recalls, waiting until the elevator back down to the lobby to break down in tears. It looked though as someone had beat the shit out of him, she says. And she and her father drove home on Route 93. Reed called her mother and described the bizarre injuries on O'Keefe's arm. Her mother suggests they could have been from an animal. Reed calls Beatty. Do the Alberts have a dog? She asked. Yes, replied a German Shepherd. Now, let me give you some information about this German Shepherd. German Shepherd's name is Chloe. German Shepherd failed out of dog biting school. Failed canine training. Dog was not obedient. Dog bit too aggressively. Dog's name is Chloe. Dog's probably nowhere around anymore. Dog's probably in heaven. We hope. But the dog bit people. The dog was a biter. It bit other dogs. It bit other people. The dog was aggressive. Don't forget, the dog was already wound up. Dog was wound up so much it was barking, and the dog had to be put down in the cellar. Dog was ready. Dog was geared up to go. Ready to go. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. So I put the dog in the crate, just like the back of the car, right? They open the crate, let the dog out. Dog goes after the stranger, just like popping the doors in the back of a trooper's car. Trooper gets in trouble, hits a button, doors pop open, dog comes out, and God help the person other than the trooper, because that dog's on a mission, and that dog will. There is no stopping that animal. Think about it. Canines, both in the back of the car and in the cage, like they are. Let them out. They attack. Dog was already wound up. If John had ended up in the cellar and that dog was free, dog would have bit John because he was the only stranger. Dog wouldn't bite Colin. Wouldn't bite Brian Albert's owner. It would definitely bite John. First time he was ever there. Stranger. Woohoo, time to bite. Yeah, I want this, buddy. Dog's going for John. He's a stranger in the bite. Done. He's the guy dog's going after. That's fact. That's what the dog does. Then, 3 months later, Reed says, a couple that Reed and O'Keefe had been close to came over to Reed's house for dinner. They had just testified before a grand jury in this case, summoned along with others who appeared in Reed's call log that morning that O'Keefe died. Over Italian takeout at Reed's mahogany dining room table, next to a sideboard, crowded with pictures of Reed and O'Keefe, one with the rosary draped across it. They told Reed that State Trooper Michael Proctor, a Canton resident and lead detective on the case, had mentioned that he had known members of the Albert family for years. Okay, time out. If we're going to believe Jen McCabe, and if we're going to believe Carrie Roberts, we're going to believe Karen Reed. Karen Reed said, quote, State Trooper Michael Proctor, a Canton resident and lead detective on the case, had mentioned that he had known members of the Albert family for years. Keyword, members. He knew the entire clan. He knew all of them, especially Colin. Colin knows all of them. Been there. I was the ring bearer in somebody's wedding. I know the girl who was the flower girl. We'll never forget her. I'll never forget the wedding. I know. I was there. I remember that. To Reed, That sounded like a conflict of interest, among other things, but to a layperson, to Karen, sure, absolutely, definitely conflict of interest. He knows the person who owns the house that he got dropped off at, that he ended up on the front lawn, but he owns the house. Regardless, John got out of the, for example, John goes up, falls in the bushes. No one sees him. Hits his head on the spigot coming out, the water spigot coming out. He's in the bushes. No one sees him. Tries to walk home, stumbles, falls down. Done. It's a dead body on a cop's front lawn. The trooper knows the guy that owns the house where the body's found. He's found on the property. Okay. He's found on the property. The property was not searched. You can't say it was. To Read, that sounded like a conflict of interest. When her guests left, she went upstairs in her bedroom, pulled out her laptop, propped herself against the pillows on her enormous white bed, and started reading through Proctor's publicly shared Facebook page. That led her to Proctor's sister, where Reed says she combed through some 1,300 photos at 4 a.m. She found what she was looking for. A photo taken at Proctor's sister's wedding that showed a young Colin Albert, the ring bearer. Then Reed found another photo of Proctor's parents and sister alongside members of Chris Albert's family. Hmm. Proctor's parents, where are they? Anybody know Proctor's parents? Not yet? Yeah, not yet. Reed was speechless. As she sat there on bed, she says, the dots in her mind began to connect, forming a theory of who had really killed O'Keefe. A theory that would prove her innocence the way she saw it. The bad blood with Colin proved a motive for the fight inside the house that night. The Albert's German Shepherd also jumped in, which might explain those mysterious arm injuries. Then the partiers tossed O'Keefe outside to die in the snow. The tipster's information had already helped convince Reed that she was being framed and that she wondered who was pulling the strings. Now, Reed says she believes her answer. Proctor. Huh. Yeah. So, Boston.com magazine, I commend you for printing a factual statement. Thank you. Meanwhile, far from coming to the conclusion that someone else killed O'Keefe, prosecutors doubled down on their belief that Reed was the killer. After the grand jury reviewed the prosecutor's evidence, it concluded there was sufficient evidence to charge her with second-degree murder, implying that she intentionally killed O'Keefe on June 9th. Proctor himself, along with several other police officers, walked up to Reed's home and once again arrested her. Wow. Reed was now facing a potential life sentence. After posting bail set at $100,000, she went home to take a long, hot shower. This is getting real, she thought to herself. The stakes keep getting higher. She knew she needed bigger legal guns to help her. Absolutely. Now you look and you see all these people again. This whole chain right here. You have all these people against little old me. All these people here have unlimited amount of money. I don't. They do. They have the guns. That's what Aiden says. They got the power. They have the guns. Yeah. Okay. Where am I here? Yeah. Before I go to the next page here. Yeah. I want to know how they found taillight pieces in the dark. Because at 6:30, the CERT team, I believe, was called to the scene at 6:30 at night in the snow. They found stuff. Mind you, this is after. John left the scene at 6:40, 6:30, declared dead, 8 o'clock roundabout. 6 o'clock that night, the troopers show up to do an investigation and look for pieces and parts. 6. Now, this is after Proctor went and got the vehicle. He's confiscated the vehicle and brought it back to Canton. They put the car in the Sally Port. And what happened in the Sally Port? I think somebody removed her taillight, the whole taillight, and took it apart. There's no pictures of it. Not a single picture. They can find a human hair. They can't find a camera, take a picture of her taillight as it was in the vehicle. They don't have it. It's gone. Never existed. They never took a picture. Show me a crime scene that doesn't have 1,000 photos or less. Talk to me here. Come on. They take the taillight out in the Sally Port before it's found at 6:30? Is that what happened? That changes the facts, doesn't it? That's a little bit different here now. Two months later, Reed sat in her laptop, her fingers hovering over the keys. She wanted an eye-grabbing subject line for an email she was about to send to Alan Jackson, a famous criminal defense lawyer in Los Angeles, who once defended Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, murder of a Boston cop, she typed out. It worked. Soon after, Reed, her father, and Yannetti all dialed into a conference call with Jackson, who had already received O'Keefe's autopsy over email and file. As Yannetti summarized the case, Jackson interrupted. How the fuck are they saying he got those injuries? Between O'Keefe's swollen black eyes and the gashes on his arm, Reed's boyfriend appeared as though he'd been beaten up before being attacked by a dog, not run over by a car. Reed's lawyers also realized that, according to Proctor's original affidavit in February, 6 months earlier, the lead detective said he arrived at Reed's parents' house in Dighton at 4:30 p.m. and towed her car at 5:30 p.m. But Reed's security footage, as well as the Dighton police report, showed those times were wrong. And Karen's SUV was actually towed closer to 4:12. That 78-minute discrepancy, reading her attorney's claim, would have left Proctor alone with the car and plenty of time to break her taillight and plant the pieces at 34 Fairview for the CERT team to find when it arrived at 5:45. He was already in Canton when the CERT team showed up. He had already touched the vehicle. He had touched the evidence before he went back to the crime scene. He touched it. He removed the taillight in the Sally Port before he went back to the crime scene. Why? By the way, he can remove a taillight, but he can't take a picture with his phone. You don't have a picture of that taillight broken. You don't have a picture of that taillight in the position that it was when the accident happened. You don't have a picture of that taillight at all. It's gone. You never took one. And you messed up the time? You are a state trooper. You do not make mistakes. Double check, triple check on a murder case. On a murder case, you're fucking up the time, dude. Jackson officially joined the defense team and began looking for evidence that would back up their alternative theory and exonerate Reed. They found suspicious details, such as Brian Albert getting rid of his dog and selling his house in the wake of O'Keefe's death. Still, it wasn't until early March that they found what they considered a bombshell, an incriminating Google search on McCabe's phone, which she had turned over to the prosecution voluntarily. According to analysis, McCabe appeared to have Googled how long to die in cold at 2:27 a.m. the night that O'Keefe was killed. That was hours before the three women found him in the snow. The same search appeared again at 6:23 and then again at 6:24. After McCabe says Reed asked her to search for it. So, if the 6:23 and the 6:24 are correct, that means the 2:27 is correct. That's it. They're all correct. Let's go back to here for a second. Let's see. Brian Albert, he got rid of his dog. Gone after the incident. He got rid of the house. He sold it for $50,000 less than market value just to dump the house. That's not a planned exit strategy, I'll tell you that. Oh, yeah, I'm going to sell my house and lose 50 large on it. Yeah, I'm ready to go. Who am I going to have for an attorney? Did the attorney get paid? Oh, by the way, what they forgot to mention is that he had his cellar refinished third time. It had just been refinished 3 years prior. It didn't need to be refinished, but it got refinished right after this incident happened and right before he sold the house. So, I mean, he must have put 25,000-30,000 into the new cellar, redid the cellar, get rid of the whole cement floor and all that good stuff. Get rid of it. Yeah. I mean, who removes concrete? Dude, what's up? Why are you getting rid of the floor? There's nothing wrong with the floor. But he got rid of it and then sold the house. And the dog. Dog's gone. On April 12th of this year, Jackson submitted a 92-page affidavit to the court laying out the defense team's theory in detail. Reed's attorneys knew it would help their efforts if someone in the media started paying attention to their version of events and that there was more to meet the eye with this case. 5 days later, their wish came true. After multiple news tipsters told him to investigate the O'Keefe murder, Aidan Kearney, a blogger who goes by the name of Turtleboy, sat down in his Holden home, surrounded by his young kids' plastic toys and board games, and reading through case filings. Both Kearney and Reed's defense team say they've never been in contact with one another. Kearney, the controversial figure behind TB Daily News, formerly Turtleboy Sports, says he knew immediately that this was the kind of story his devoted followers would love. Kearney worked on this piece through his night, finishing at 3 a.m. and posting it under the headline, Canton Cover-Up, Part 1. Corrupt state trooper helps Boston cop cover up murder of fellow officer, framed innocent girlfriend. Okay, I'm going to read that again. Canton Cover-Up, Part 1. Corrupt state trooper helps Boston cop cover up murder of fellow officer, innocent girlfriend. Yeah. That's true. All that's true. He he prints true items, facts, tidbits, news items. He's yeah. Canny laid out the theory that Reed's lawyers had presented to the court, alleging that McCabe had planted the idea in Reed's head that she might have accidentally run over O'Keefe, and implied that Proctor had planted taillight pieces at the scene. Karen Reed is a completely innocent woman wrongly charged by corrupt cops who would see her rot in prison in order to cover up a murder of a fellow police officer, Canny concluded. Canny suspected that as soon as he published his article, it would blow up online. He was right. His website nearly crashed under the strain of traffic. He says, meanwhile, back in Canton, the coverage was about to rip the town in half. Well, I remember that. And he got a lot of traffic, and he still gets a lot of traffic because people come here to get the information. This is when people want to look at Can't Read stuff, they go to Turtleboy, they look at what he's written, and that is the narrative. That's the facts. Those are facts. Like them, don't like them, he'll print them. Good, bad, and different. He's going to print you the facts. He's going to let you make up your mind. The next day, news of the possible conspiracy spread like wildfire, from the deli counter to Shaw's to the links at Brook Meadow Country Club. Before Kearney's piece, there wasn't much talk of O'Keefe's death beyond those immediately involved. Suddenly, it was topic du jour, and residents started taking sides. In response, the town's police chief tried to ease tensions by releasing a press statement asking for patience. We have heard the same sensational accounts as our townsfolk. Chief Helena Rafferty wrote, unlike defense attorneys, prosecutors and police are ethically constrained to what can be said outside the courtroom. Canny has no such constraints. He continued to write about the case, one story after another. As his monthly page views rocketed from about 1.5 million, he says, to as many as 4 million, he began live streaming Canton cover-up stories twice weekly on his YouTube channel, and says his viewership increased from 3,000 to 20,000 per episode. And he's well over that now. By the time Reed and her legal team arrived in court 2 weeks later, it was clear to Reed that the tide of public opinion had turned in her favor. A crowd had gathered outside the courthouse. One person shouted, "Go get him, Karen," while someone else chimed in, "Stand tall, girl, stand tall." Jackson recalls, Reed turned to her lawyers, astounded, as the courtroom door closed behind him. The crowd applauded. I was there for that day. Amazing. Jackson rose and presented the defense alternative theory, which is factual, which was essentially what Kearney had posted. The witnesses in the case, those inside the house that night, which there were a lot, talk about all them, had hidden evidence of the gruesome events that transpired inside the home, leading to O'Keefe's death. Their close friend in law enforcement, Michael Proctor, helped cover it up and frame O'Keefe's girlfriend. The prosecutors poked holes in the defense theory and pushed back with their own agenda. With their own evidence against Reed. Meanwhile, beyond the walls of the courthouse, the town residents were at war amongst themselves. At high school games, parents who once sat side by side cheering now avoided one another's gazes and went silent when someone who disagreed with their take on the case walked by. My social group is really small right now because of this, one woman said, who, like many Canton residents, asked not to be named for fear of repercussions in her neighborhood. I only surround myself now with people that I trust. One woman was born and raised in Canton, says, it's like bringing up Donald Trump at a dinner party. It could just explode. People don't want to know what side they're on because, like politics, they don't want to deal with the fallout. That's a shame. At the same time, though, the fault lines often seem to take the same form as old grudges in a town where many families had lived for generations. The problem with this town is that nobody fucking leaves, says one resident. Most people in Canton are turning on each other because they don't like the Albert family, or they're pissed that Chris Albert was elected to the select board, or they're jealous of Jen from high school, or whatever their stupid bullshit things are. There are these beefs from high school with these people. So what this person who interviewed is saying that all the players in this case still act like they're in high school, even though they're adults. They still act like they're in school. Simultaneously, in the actual high school, students turned on one another. You have to pick one side or another, says one father who saw one of his daughters kicked out of a friend group, while others borderline suicidal because he believes Karen and her friends don't. As the case wore on, Kearney's role in the tabloid drama continued to expand. He became involved in a Facebook group called Justice for John O'Keefe and Karen Read Mass Corruption, which has more than 21,000 members who use the space to dissect nuisances within the evidence, pick on witnesses, and one-up each other with hyperbolic insults. Okay. I gotta disagree with the author of this article. I'm sorry, but that's not how it is. That's not how this page is. That's not how that page is. No, it doesn't work like that. No. What happens is Aiden Kearney does his work, does his investigations, does what he does very well, but he does it. And the people on this Facebook group, we read it, we discuss it, we tear it apart, we look for problems, we look for errors, we look for things that are wrong with it, and we can't find any. That's what we do. And we just take it and it goes in our memory bank. But it does not pick on witnesses. Except Jim McCabe. That's okay though. And there's a lot. 99.9% of the people in that group you would invite inside your house. They're that nice of people. I know that is fact. All right, John had no issues with anybody except Colin. Isn't that funny? Now, when the trooper went and picked up Karen's car and arrested her, the time that he picked up the car was wrong. He picked it up earlier than he reported. And Lally, in court, blamed daylight savings time as an excuse as to why the time was off. But it was more than an hour off, dude. Now, thank God Karen's parents have a ring that caught it. Alarm.com. John has ring cameras. John has video. Karen's parents have video. Does Karen have video at her house? You know? Yeah, did that. Yep. Okay. In response, the people who were inside the home at 34 Fairview that night, O'Keefe died, whom Kearney alleges are truly responsible for his death, and O'Keefe's family members and friends started their own private group. An admin of which is a woman who used to write for Kearney until they fell out with each other several years ago. They both say the two have been locked in battle, suing each other in court ever since. Kearney refers to himself as a journalist, Yet he doesn't simply publish articles or videos to make his point. He also traveled to Canton and beyond, readers in tow, to directly confront the people he says are responsible for O'Keefe's murder. One day, for instance, Kearney attended McCabe's daughter's publicly held high school lacrosse game in Billerica, where he filmed and live streamed the confrontation. For his YouTube followers, do you think you could outsmart Karen Reed? He asked McCabe as she sat with her oldest daughter and friends trying to ignore him. Are you worried what's going to happen to your family when you go to jail? His readers have gone even further, texting and sending McCabe Facebook mail with messages telling McCabe to kill herself. Again, I'm not sure the bottom part is that is right. I don't know if people are even bothering to text the McCabes. I don't think that's happening. And like this says, you can see the video that he went and confronted Jen. I mean, I don't think there's a problem with that. Okay. O'Keefe's brother, Paul, and his mother, Peg, who lost 2 of her 3 children, John and his sister, arguably received the most pointed vitriol. On his YouTube show, Kenny has said, with the O'Keefes, enough of the fucking pity party for these fucking people. And the only good part about John not being alive is he doesn't have to be around you useless maggots for a second more. Fuck you. Fuck your high horse. Born in hell. Kenny says he's offended that they believe the state is so prosecuting the right person, and he's glad he's able to use his platform to shine a light on the case. The beauty of Turtleboy is I can do things in an unconventional manner that other journalists are restricted from doing. He says, I love being the center of attention and being theatrical and performing. This is what I was made to do. I think the way that they worded that isn't accurate correctly. Yeah. I can see how this has been kind of switched around a little bit, and that none of this is right. Now, the O'Keefe family, they think Karen hit John. But yet the dog bites on John's arm are the same bites that a canine dog trained to bite a person in the arm would do. Look it up. Go to YouTube. Do your own research. Go look at graphic dog bites on Google. Go look at it. Go look and see what happens to an arm or a leg when a dog bites it. Go look. Don't believe me? Go find out yourself. It's easy. But guess what? The bites on his arm from a dog. Who had a dog that bit? Brian Albert. Whose house did he get dropped off at? Brian Albert. Who's friends with Brian Albert? Michael Proctor. Okay? We're okay. It's okay, though. We're okay. Now, I love being center of attention, being theatrical and performing. This is what I was made to do. I don't think being theatrical and performing is what he was referring to. I think doing and being Turtleboy and the journalistic part of it, he's got a knack for it, looking into things, and he's just got that part of it. So I think he was really kind of made to do that. You know, I don't see it being theatrical or performing, but I mean, it could be. I construed that way. It's good. It's easy to watch. And he's always been proven correct. It's factual. As if to prove his point, on July 22nd, Kearney and more than 100 people, from old men with bushy beards to infants in car seats, gathered in the parking lot of Shaw Supermarket in Norwood and passed around markers to write slogans on their cars, including "House Long for Justice." A play on McCabe's mistyped Google search. I don't know nothing about that one, but that one was a good one. Nearly 50 cars embarked on a rolling ride through the streets of Canton while Turtleboy followers watched on the live stream. Over the next 2 hours, Kearney, who drives a brand new Lexus, which who cares, stopped at the homes of Brian Albert, Michael Proctor, and Jennifer McCabe, At each stop, Kearney shouted into a bullhorn, detailing how each person was covering up O'Keefe's murder. The rally ended at the Canton Police Department. Some cars passed by and honked their horns in support. A lot of cars honked in support. And out the window of one passing car, someone chucked an egg at the protesters. Now, I was on the fog line. I was the farthest out into traffic. I was trying to keep the cars to go to the right of me, out into the center line of the street, to avoid the group of people that we had. We had a crowd of people, so I was trying to be on the outside, so the cars would go on the outside of me and protect the people on the inside. And the lady that threw the egg, it went right by me, and it missed the little kid that was sitting right behind me. Dana. Forget her last name. But she does real estate, so you don't want to buy a house from an egg thrower. So don't go through that real estate company, whatever one that she is. She's an egg thrower. I actually filed a report with the Canton Police Department. Yeah. Throw me an egg at me. Throw it. Catch a charge. Whatever. Days later, two chauffeured, blacked out SUVs rolled to a dramatic stop in front of the Dedham Courthouse, where 100 or so people had been loudly protesting for nearly 2 hours under the blazing sun, holding handmade signs emblazoned with DA Stop Lying and Way Beyond Reasonable Doubt. Kearney was shouting into a bullhorn while wearing a gray House Long to Die in Coal t-shirt, which he sells on his website for $22. The boisterous crowd quieted just for a moment as the driver stood by the passenger door, heightening the intense anticipation. Finally, he opened the door, and Jackson stepped out wearing a crisp suit. He turned and offered his hand to Reed, who emerged in a tailored black suit dress and heels. She took in the people there and beamed before walking through the crowd and up the steps into the courthouse. The onlookers then booed O'Keefe's parents, who lowered their heads as they walked by people wearing Freekarenread t-shirts. I was there that day. That's pretty much how it went down. Yeah. Karen couldn't believe the crowd. She was in awe. You could see the gratitude. You could see it on her face when she was walking up. Stand tall, Karen. Stand tall, lady. You got it. When the doors to the courtroom upstairs finally opened, the benches on both sides of the gallery filled with spectators. Reed's supporters sat on one side, while O'Keefe's family and friends wearing Justice for JJ buttons sat on the other. Assistant District Attorney Lally walked into the room, flushed, balancing a massive stack of folders, as Reed and her 4 lawyers sat coolly at the defense table. After arguing various motions, Lally asked the judge to compel, yet again, Reed and her attorneys to allow the prosecution access to the data from Reed's cell phone. Though the state police had taken her phone into custody 18 months earlier, prosecutors had been prohibited from analyzing its contents because it contained privileged communication between Reed and her lawyers. Yannetti, who she called a few hours after O'Keefe died. They have Karen Reed's phone. They have it. They have the entire phone. Happens is they can't read the communication between her and her attorneys. So they need to find someone to go in, a third party, I think, and say that this is information and like delete it or not, or file protect that one file of information where you can't get into it. The others can be opened. Again, there's a couple of different ways you can get around that or get to that. But the bottom line is they have Karen's phone. For the most part, they have her entire phone. End of story. They just can't look inside it until they can get access or permission because it's got confidential or considered personal information with communication with her and attorney, so they can't look at it. prosecution, for obvious reasons, wants Reed's cell phone data. After all, it could reveal who she called and texted that night and where she went in the hours before she called McCabe in the morning. This is particularly important because, according to court filings from the prosecution, O'Keefe's Ring camera system registered 15 events between 6 p.m. the night he died and 6 a.m. the next morning. So there are 15 events in 12 hours that Reed's Ring camera picked up. That's important. Those 15 events, where are they? What events were they? What type of event was it? Was it a motion event? I mean, we have different types of events here, but there are 15 of them. One could be the same thing twice. I've seen Ring do that. You get 2 duplicate ones before. All right. What she was doing there, what she had previously searched for, and what she found O'Keefe's body. That might explain how she spotted O'Keefe in the dark, given that the police officer who responded to the 911 call had to use the spotlight from his cruiser to see the woman crouched over O'Keefe's body in the darkness. Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, in the dark, you're looking for house numbers. You're not looking for people. As a cop, you're looking to see where, side, number. Even foregoing the missing cell phone data, though, there are some possible holes in Reed's alternative theory. For starters, the thesis that O'Keefe was assaulted inside 34 Fairview hinges on Colin Albert's allegedly contentious relationship with O'Keefe, which we know. We know Colin Albert and John O'Keefe had a problem with each other. In an exclusive interview, though, Colin Albert told Boston that he walked out of the house at 34 Fairview. Where am I? When Brian Albert was arriving, he said hello and stepped into the car of Jennifer McCabe's daughter, who then drove him home. According to court documents, no one else, including O'Keefe, had arrived by that point. Ain't that funny? Text messages, which Boston.com has seen, but has not in any way confirmed, say he was picked up at 12:10, and his parents say he was home for the rest of the night. All of which counters the theory that his animosity with Colin led to O'Keefe's death inside the house within minutes of his arrival. And then his friends tossed him on the lawn to die in a blizzard. Reed's arrival back home that night, the data in her phone could possibly also help explain surveillance footage taken of Reed driving toward the waterfall at 5:11, away from the waterfall at 5:15, and then heading toward 34th Fairview before arriving at McCabe's that morning. What was she doing there? Had she already searched for and found O'Keefe's body that night? That might explain how she spotted O'Keefe in the dark, given that the police officer who responded to the 911 call had to use a spotlight from his cruiser to see the woman crouched over O'Keefe's body in the darkness. Yeah. Yep. I could probably understand that. Being dark, 3 women huddled over John. Yeah. But it says here that the prosecution wants data in her phone to somewhat prove that she drove by there previous or didn't. I don't know. But they seem to have footage from the library, right? But where's the other footage from the library? That's what we got to ask, because the footage that would exonerate Karen Reed, the footage that shows her taillight intact, that footage from the library, they lost it. The footage that would show the taillight intact, they lost it. It's gone. Even foregoing the missing cell phone data, though, there are some possible holes in Reed's alternative theory. For starters, the thesis that O'Keefe was assaulted inside 34 Fairview hinges on Colin Albert's allegedly contentious relationship with O'Keefe. Okay. Contentious relationship with O'Keefe. Okay. He was a loving soul. Nobody had an issue with him. All right. There seem to be some holes in the defense's allegations concerning the conduct of investigator Proctor, who, Reed's lawyers allege, planted evidence at the crime scene. According to the DA's spokesperson, Proctor's police report listing the incorrect time indicting, supposed evidence of his having plenty of time to plan evidence, was simply an error. That was amended later in filings. Police reports and the DA also confirmed that Proctor was never alone with Reed's Lexus and never returned to 34 Fairview after it was seized. Even a larger problem for Reed's defense is evidence that there are microscopic pieces of taillight plastic found on O'Keefe's shirt. That I don't believe they found plastic pieces on O'Keefe's shirt. If these people can't handle library footage, these people can't do things correctly. If they're gonna tell me that Proctor doesn't know Jen McCabe, you're gonna tell me Proctor doesn't know Colin Albert? Tell me these things, because you have. And now you're gonna tell me that they found plastic pieces of taillight in his shirt? I heard 1/16 of an inch. That's not microscopic. You can see that with a human eye. 16th of an inch? Absolutely, dude. Yeah, microscopic pieces of plastic. You're telling me you found that? You, Lally, found that. Okay, bud, I'll believe you today, maybe not tomorrow. When it comes to the timestamp on McCabe's Google search for how long it takes to die in the cold, the state's own forensic expert say the timestamp of 2:27 a.m. was a result of McCabe typing in the search bar of a tab that had been opened at 2:27 and left open, meaning it does not prove that she executed the search at the time. How can they get to that? Because what they're admitting is Jen McCabe was on Google at 2:27 a.m. What was Jen McCabe Googling at 2:27 a.m.? The state right here says, right? McCabe typing into the search bar that had been opened at 2:27. The state is telling us that. I will believe you. I will believe the state when they tell me that Jen McCabe Googled something at 2:27 a.m. She was awake. Her Apple Health data says she was up all night pacing. Funny how that works. We can't believe Jen's health data, but we have to believe everything else. We can't believe John's health data, but we can believe everything else. Wrong. Meanwhile, forensic evidence calls into question other aspects of Reed's defense. According to court documents filed by the prosecutor, the medical examiner testified in front of the grand jury that the injuries O'Keefe suffered were not the result of a fight, and the marks on his arm were abrasions caused by blunt force trauma. In addition, data from Reed's Lexus, retrieved by the state, shows that her car went in reverse at a high rate of speed. Then, according to the state's crash reconstruction team, struck the victim and continued in reverse before leaving the scene. So, timeout. And this is nothing against Karen, but Karen, being drunk, can't back out of a parking spot inside of a garage without hitting a parked car. And she's going to back up at a high rate of speed and strike someone and then keep driving home in reverse? Dukes of Hazzard? Not happening. No way. Not going to happen. That's a stretch to say that she backed into somebody at any speed whatsoever, at any speed. If she was backing up out of that driveway at John's house, I could be behind her on crutches and still get out of the way between her and the Chevy Traverse. If I was between them and she was backing up that night, there's no way I would have been hit. She doesn't have the dexterity to drive in reverse at those speeds. It takes a little bit of training. You should do it in some time, I'm sure, for some practice. She doesn't have that skill set to drive in reverse at that rate of speed. Sorry, I don't see it happening. Think about it. Can you drive backwards 27 miles an hour? Try it. I dare you. There's video of it. I got video, me driving backwards, all different speeds. Not easy. Besides the physical evidence, another piece of the puzzle Reed's lawyers will have to explain is Reed's ever-changing narrative, which is not really ever-changing. But according to prosecutors, O'Keefe's niece, who Reed woke up to call McCabe, says that Reed changed her story multiple times when she was on the phone with McCabe that morning, and it continued to vary. Reed told Proctor that she dropped O'Keefe off at Fairview and went home because she had a stomachache, and that she never saw him enter the house during an interview with Boston. She said that she saw O'Keefe run up to the house and enter through the door on the breezeway, that she waited some 10 minutes to hear from him, that it was copacetic for her to join him and his friends, and left when he didn't answer her calls or come back. Yet the theory that Reed's team exposes hinges on O'Keefe being inside the house. Yet, according to a statement from Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey, cell phone data from O'Keefe's phone found on the grass beneath his body shows the phone never entered the house. However, what you're not told, thank you, Mr. Michael Morrissey and Detective Proctor, what you're not told is that John's cell phone also registered up and down 3 flights of stairs. There are 3 flights of stairs when you walk into that split raised ranch. So 3 flights of stairs are inside the house. John's phone shows up and down 3 flights of stairs. Again, either we have to believe the Apple Health data or we don't believe the Apple Health data. You either keep all the Google searches at 2:27 a.m. or you throw all the Google searches out. It either happened or it didn't. The Google search happened at 2:27. It did. State's own person says that Jen was on her phone at 2:27. Proctor now is saying that phone didn't go up and down three flights of stairs. What's more, while Reed has insisted that she and O'Keefe were in a loving relationship, evidence from O'Keefe's phone shows she called him some 50 times that night, leaving furious voicemails and screaming that she hated him, according to the prosecution. And there's another potential bombshell buried in the documents concerning ATF agent Brian Higgins, who was in the Fairview house that night. He was the only person there who has not been the focus of Turtleboy coverage. Many people in Canton say he hasn't been heard from since the night O'Keefe died. He voluntarily gave authorities his phone, from which they retrieved some 56 pages of text between him and Karen, some of which, with the source of knowledge of the messages, has characterized as romantic in nature. Higgins did not respond to requests for comment. So, if Karen had 56 pages of texts, she probably never deleted them. And they're probably from when I think they were boyfriend and girlfriend at one time. I think they were so 56 pages isn't really a lot if they're boyfriend girlfriend, right? I mean, it's kind of little unless they spent a lot of time together. Then there's no need to text. Yeah, of course I can see that. Why wouldn't they? That's just how normal people kind of do normal types of stuff. Not really a bombshell. But I'm happy to hear that they have Higgins' phone and they know who Higgins talked to That day, that morning, and that night. Yeah. None of this takes into account the fact that prosecutors have evidence they have not yet publicly shared and probably won't release until the trial, which is currently set for March 12th, 2024. To accept Reed's alternative theory, jurors will have to believe that there was a conspiracy among officers from multiple law enforcement agencies and emergency responders, witnesses, a medical examiner, a forensic computer expert, O'Keefe's then 14-year-old niece, his childhood friend, who he didn't even know any of the people who the conspiracy is allegedly protecting, in order to frame Reed. All they need, though, is reasonable doubt in the defense's case, and Reed's freedom might just depend on it. Still months away from the trial, the case is already making the Hollywood rounds. Dateline has been filming Reed for a show scheduled for release after the verdict, which Kearney says has been approached by multiple documentary producers, including a few from Netflix. Meanwhile, in Canton, the community convulses under the weight of the tabloid drama. On August 8th, residents packed the second floor of the Memorial Hall of the Canton Select Board meeting to voice their concerns about Selectman Chris Albert, the Canton Police Department, and their otherwise quiet and peaceful suburb being portrayed as a national disgrace. Police Chief Rafferty took to the microphone and said she could understand people having questions about the O'Keefe case based on the limited information publicly available. But what was unacceptable was witnesses, residents who had not been charged with any crime, being bullied and harassed by either side of the case under the guise of the First Amendment. Several weeks later, Norfolk DA attorney used his First Amendment powers as that he has, and he followed up with a recorded video message. Seated in front of a bookshelf of legal tomes, he mentioned evidence that counters much of Reed's alternative theory and pleaded with the public to stop harassing the crime witnesses. We try people in the court and not on the internet for a reason, he said, adding that this was the first and only time during the dozen-year career he'd felt compelled to record such a message. The internet has no rules of evidence. The internet has no punishment for perjury, and the internet does not know all the facts. Okay, that's true. But guess what, dude? You're not releasing or reporting all the facts either, dude. You're the one hiding the fact that Proctor is related to 99% of the people in Canton. They're all related. They're all sisters and brothers. Different names, but they're all related. They're all connected. Man. A couple weeks after that, at a regularly scheduled select board hearing, a resident speaking at the microphone broke down in tears. It's been a long 19 months, she said, adding that she wanted to see an independent investigation of the crime to get to the bottom of the incident that's divided her town. I spoke with the lady. I think it might have been the same lady. And she just wants an independent audit of the police department. And I think that's a wonderful idea. But they won't get behind it. If the police department's on the up and up, why would you not want to support just a little look and peek, you know? Let's not take a peeky weeky what's that going on, and let's look at the books. You know? What's your budget with Glock? $80,000 a year? How much have you spent? What did you buy? Where's the weapons that you bought? Where's this that you bought? How about the new body armor? How much is going to the first responders? You know, how much is where are we? Are we good? Come on. You're the chief of police. You got to reassure us. Show us. Show us everything is fine. Show us the residents are safe. At this point, the residents are probably safer patrolling for themselves. There's one thing that almost everyone in Canton seems to agree upon. O'Keefe was a good man and a selfless person who, after losing his sister, stepped up to raise her children with love and devotion. He was universally liked in town that had descended into bitter strife over his untimely death. Still, for now at least, people in Canton are so busy fighting over whether Reed is a criminal or a victim of police corruption that no one is talking much about O'Keefe. So, let's talk about O'Keefe a little bit. He took his two his two niece and nephew. He took them in. He took them on as his own, as their father, as their funkle. He was now the guy. He didn't want to be put in that position. I'm sure. Who does? Nobody wants to lose someone close to them. It happens. It sucks, but it happens. He stepped up. He took them kids in as his own. But guess what? So did Karen. People forget that part, whole thing. She accepted these kids as her own, treated them as her own. 2 years they had a relationship with the kids. 2 years deep. I'm sure she helped him a lot. I'm sure he appreciated it all. He was not one bad thing, except we have a problem. Someone's in his front lawn throwing beer cans in this guy's front yard, and everyone seems to be okay with that type of behavior toward this type of a guy. You're all skipping over the part that Colin went up to John's Ring camera when he was on vacation and fucking hit the button and was flipping him off and telling him how much of a piece of shit he was, all while John was on vacation. There's nothing John could do. But Colin's right there in his face, in the Ring camera. Hey, what's up? Can you hear me now, guy? I mean, and no one does anything about it. And John just let it ride. That guy, that kid, if John told on Colin would have been so raging upset and would have given him another reason to hate John even more. You told on me. You called the cops on me. I'm coming after you even harder now. I would call that a mortal enemy. And he was the only mortal enemy that John had. And John didn't have it. Colin chose to fuck with John. Colin chose to mess with John. Colin's the one that threw the beer cans in the bushes. Colin's the one that had words with John. Yeah. Oh. Hey, who's sleeping? Is anybody sleeping? Put this next to your door. Hey, snowblower coming next. Leaf blower coming up. Yeah. I want to repeat this part. There's one thing that almost everyone in Canton seems to agree upon. O'Keefe was a good man and a selfless person who, after losing his sister, stepped up to raise the children with love and devotion. He was universally liked in town. No one had a problem with him, except one. He had a mortal enemy. But, like they say, Colin wasn't in the house. Okay. Here we go. This is a readout of who is who in Canton. This is file. It's on the website. I'm sorry, it's on the Facebook page, Justice for John O'Keefe. It's in the file section. If you go up the top, there's a bunch of files. This is a rundown of who is involved inside and all the players, what they did, their importance. You got Chloe, Colin Albert, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Nicole Albert. All these people here are involved. Think about that. These are the people involved. Another court document. I want to show you something. Is it this one? There's something, I don't think it's this one. I found something. I want to show you guys. Okay. Which one is it? one. Okay. Right here. As Mrs. McCabe was arriving at her vehicle, she received a text message from Mr. O'Keefe asking, "Where to?" At 12:14 a.m., Mrs. McCabe replied with the address of 34 Fairview Road. At 12:18, Mr. O'Keefe called Miss Jennifer McCabe on the phone to ask more specifically where the house was located on Fairview, because he didn't know. He was there that night, and she made sure of it. She gave him the address. She was pressuring him to come. While inside the residence following her arrival there, Mrs. McCabe observed a black SUV consistent with Mrs. Reed's vehicle, a 2021 black Lexus SUV, arrive at the front of the residence. From her vantage point at the front door of the home, Mrs. McCabe texted Mr. O'Keefe at 12:31, stating hello. And again at 12:40 a.m., pull up behind me, referencing her vehicle's parking spot within the driveway of the home. Located on the right side of the property, if looking at the residence from the street, Mrs. McCabe then observed the black SUV move from its initial place where it had stopped on the street near the driveway and proceed to the left side of the property where Mr. O'Keefe's body was subsequently later found in the morning. Now, this is the good thing. Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts all went back to John's house. Okay. From John's house, they drove to 34 Fairview, and that's when they found the body. Jen McCabe was driving. Jen McCabe knows how the roads are. Jen McCabe knows the town, knows the streets, knows the turns, knows the bumps. Jen McCabe driving the vehicle. It took Jen McCabe 10 minutes to drive from John's house to 34 Fairview in the documents. I shaved a minute off for the seconds. We're going to call it 10 minutes. It was snowing out, so maybe 11. But regardless, she drove from John's house to 34 Fairview, and it took 10 minutes. So guess what? From the time of the phone call that Karen made while in the garage, 10 minutes reverse backwards is when she left 34 Fairview. Fact. So the times are important. There's no way she could have hit John, because looking at the times, you had people based on the documents that are submitted. Says Adam C. Lally, Assistant District Attorney. You have people that are outside coming in. You have somebody at the door watching the street. Mr. McCabe, it's in the documents, says he was watching out the front door. He watched the entire thing. He watched Karen move from the driveway to the flagpole area. He watched that completely in his view. Karen left and went home. He didn't see her backing up and hitting anybody, because she didn't. He saw the car the whole time. From the driveway to the flagpole. He saw the car move slowly forward. She was moving out to get out of the way for other people to come into the house because people were arriving. It was a party, remember? 10 minutes. Go back 10 minutes from when Karen was on the phone. 10 minutes back. Matt McCabe is out the front door looking at the entire front of the house. Karen was there at that time, proving. McCabe was out the window. He never saw her hit John. Nope. Because she didn't. If he's so attuned to outside that he saw a V in the road, like a 3-point turn, he saw it. He knew what it was. He's that observant. He's that astute. He's that dialed into the snowfall and the marks made in the snow that he saw that V, and he saw Karen move her car. He was out there looking out the door the whole time. 10 minutes back from John's house. Called 11 because it was snowing out. Karen doesn't know the roads as well as Jen does. Give her another minute. 11 minutes. That puts Karen in front of Fairview. In front of everybody. Matt McCabe said he was out the window, never saw her back up. Never happened. Never happened. Here's an interview. Julie was asleep at 4:55 a.m. on January 29th when her phone woke her up, and it was Jen's missed call. And that is how she found out about John dying. You see right here? Julie told us that she was asleep. Her phone woke her up. She missed a call from Jennifer. In that phone call, she found out John dying. It's right here. Sergeant Yuri Bukaki, my buddy. So, yeah. Everything's out there. All the information's out there. If you go to the website, Justice for John O'Keefe and Karen Read, Turtleboy Official. If you go to the website, you can join it and then read all the information. Let's see if I can do this. Hold on. This share screen. Can't read. No, I don't want that one. This. See if I can do share. Okay. Right here. This is what you want to find. Justice for John O'Keefe and Karen Read, Turtleboy Official. When you come to this site, there's a files tab. Go to the files. And this is all the information that you want. This is what I've read. And these are what I've spoke about. All the information that I've spoken about is in these documents here. Some of it is my opinion. And some of it is not. That's just how it goes. Some of it is facts that nobody can change. You know, we have John who's no longer with us. We can't change that. But I'll tell you, from the data, there's no way. If Karen was traveling backwards at that speed, the damage to the body wouldn't be the way that it is. The damage to John doesn't match the damage done on her vehicle. And the height's completely off too, by the way. There's no way. He would have broken the glass with his head. He's 6'2". He's huge. He's a big dude. 250. You're doing more than just giving a little dent and no. He's breaking stuff at that speed. When someone else did a thing, they talked about old people and skin tears. It's got nothing to do with John's arm. You can't even go there. Like, I've worked in hospitals. I know what you're talking about. if an older person, if they get a scratch or a bug bite, that'll open up into a freaking 4x4 gauze pad of a open wound. It goes from one to the other. I've seen it happen. We're not talking about that, dude. Sorry. You can't use the old people's skin as a wound on this case. You can't. Two different things. When you open a tab, it's a factual thing. If you open your phone right now and you go to Google and you look up the weather, it's a factual thing. Everything that phone does, all the processes that happen in the background are all factual. You can't say it didn't happen if it's already in the file. It's part of the file. I can understand Karen waking up at 4:30 in the morning drunk the next day, as it was reported. I can see that. I can see her being in a fog, kind of not really being able to process anything, like legit. Tabloid drama. No, I don't see tabloid drama. You know what I don't see? I don't see the interview with Lucky Loughran in the interview. That Lucky Loughran, who's plowing his whole life, who takes pride in what he does, who does his job extremely good. Lucky didn't see a body. And at the height of the truck looking down, he would have seen a body. But he didn't, because John wasn't there when Lucky went by. Funny how that works. Lucky also saw a Ford Edge parked right in front of the flagpole, right where John was found. Now, the state police, what have you done to find that Ford Edge that Lucky Loughran fingered as being the last vehicle to see John alive? Because we can only assume he was alive then. The black vehicle killed him. Who drives the black vehicle, Mr. Yuri Bugagi? Every member in the house, every kid in that house, all these teenagers with excellent eyesight, none of them saw John out in front lawn dead, dying. Because don't forget, Jen pulled the fire drill, kicked everyone out of the house at 1 o'clock. John was supposed to be already there, dying man, screaming in pain. Nobody saw him? The 6'2" dude on your front yard? Come on, Jen. Really? You didn't see him? You can watch lacrosse from way in the top. You can look down in the field. You see somebody playing down there. I saw you at the top of the stands. You're looking way down. John was only like close, and like you didn't see him. Why did you not see John on the front lawn? How come nobody saw John on the front lawn? There would have been an impact scene and a body scene. There would have been a point of impact, and there would have been a point of the body impact. State police don't have either. Now, Chief Rafferty, she says that John was in contact with the police department in an NOD, notice of discovery, 21 pages of texts to Kevin Albert from John O'Keefe. 21 pages of texts of what? That's got nothing to do with the murder of John O'Keefe. Then why can't we see these, Mrs. Rafferty? This is this 22 pages or 21 pages of texts in one disc of a video that you have. That is a different situation than the murder of John O'Keefe. This is a different case number. I'm curious, Miss Rafferty, if I can get a copy of that file, the case number of that file, Freedom of Information, see what I can get out, because it's a dead end now. It doesn't work. Kevin Albert, 20 pages of text between him and John. Haven't seen any of them. 12/18 text was received from Jen from her vantage point. 12:30, she says hello. At 12:40, she says, pull up behind me. Nagel, during this time, Nagel shows up. Nagel doesn't see John anywhere. John's already in the house. Nagel doesn't see John. Nagel does see Karen. Pulled up a little bit, so she's not necessarily in the way. People can still come to get to the driveway. She's sitting there in her car alone. Interior lights on. He looks he was in a truck. He was taller than her. He looked down at her. Hands 10 and 2 on the wheel, waiting. Yeah. At 12:45, Jen McCabe texts John. She then observed the SUV drive away at 12:45. That puts Karen home at 12:55 because it's 10 minutes to get home. 12:56 if you are giving her another minute for the snow. Okay. Late at night, no traffic. Figure nobody in front of you. 10 minutes. 11. Okay. But it's 11 minutes from 12:45 is when Jen McCabe says she observed the SUV drive away. Brian Albert says the shepherd was brought downstairs because it was barking. Jen stated that the taillight was also cracked, which was true. It was cracked. Jennifer says she was at the house from 11:45 to 1:30 in the morning. Now, we know that's not true from Turtleboy's reporting. Yeah. Now, if I take this recording stick, little device here, if I take this and I clip it on and I walk around and I record and I come back, the information, right, for this, all the memory, everything in it is stored on a memory stick right here. Okay. So if I took that file and it recorded for an hour, that's a complete 60 minutes. And I took that 60 minutes and I wrapped it up and I made it into a video that lasted, say, 55 minutes. You can look at one and say, okay, that is the file 0001AQ13XZ2 hash mark. And the next file is the actual video I put together that's 55 minutes long, and it's all nice and neat and whatnot. So, what the state police, Mr. Garino didn't give the defense the file 000A1 blah 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 blah. Nope. He gave them the 55-minute video that was created from the 60 minutes of footage. It's called an image. You take what's on this and you copy it. So now what's on this is on this. So you have two of the same stuff. Doesn't matter which one you use. All right. You put it in and the data that's on it is the same because it's identical. Okay. It's called an image. Trooper Garino gave the defense the report that's generated out of Celebrate. He didn't give them this file. He didn't give them what they asked for. He gave them what Celebrate kicked out as a result. So he plugged that phone in, boom. Open Celebrate, file, copy phone. Boom. They got a copy of the Celebrate report. They did not get the original file that they asked for. And guess who knows the difference? Trooper Garino. If that dude don't know the difference between a file and an image, sorry, dude, you gotta fucking go. And go fucking now. If you don't know the difference, that puts every single case you've ever touched in jeopardy. If you don't know the difference between a file and an image. Two different things. You give somebody what they ask for. And the only reason why, I guess we should probably ask Michael Proctor. Okay? I think Michael Proctor may want to know. Because he's the lead investigator, you know? Everything should go through him, you know? Yeah. Watch this. Oh my God, it came up. Let's let me see if I can share my screen again. So I just did a little search. Okay. Now I did a Google search. You're going to tell me it didn't happen, but guess what? It did. I just did a Google search, right? And watch this. Jen McCabe over Trooper Proctor's house. I did Google. Google come up. Google, look at the Google machine works. Canton cover up. Part 161. Jen McCabe was seen at Jen McCabe was seen at the Proctor's house at 6 p.m. tonight, despite allegedly not knowing them. Quote, the prosecutor, Lally. They don't know each other. But guess what? They're just hanging out. They're chilling out, having a bud. Who knows? Doing shots. But yeah, that's her. That's her Jeep. See the plate? Pretty cool, huh? Ho-ho, same plate. That's Jen. But yeah, so she was over Michael Proctor's house. That's that's Michael's house right there. That's his wife's car, I think, and that's his car. But yep. So Jen McCabe is over the lead detective's house. You see that, right? That's her Jeep, and that's his house. Tell me that this is normal. Normal. This is okay. This picture is okay. Jen McCabe over the lead detective's house. If I could go back wait, do you want to? We can actually go back and look at all of the files. We can do this. Where are we? Open this. Now let's do. All right, there we go. You ready? What is that? That is called this one, I think. Nope. Find out. Where is it? How come I can't find it now? This is going crazy. This is what I want. Open. Okay. Now I go to here. And I go, what's the blouses? Click the green icon. That's why. Okay. So this. Yeah. Okay. So if we go to here, right? And we go back up. And we go to here. And we go up here. And we go to files. Here is all of the data. In here, you will find Adam Lally, who says that Trooper Proctor doesn't know anyone that's involved in the case. He says he is not conflicted Okay? Trooper Proctor is not conflicted. You know? I I think maybe he's right about that. He's 100% on the other side. He's not conflicted in any way. He's totally friggin' corrupt. How can the witness, she's a witness now. Jen is a witness. Jen's comments are being used to convict Karen. Jen's comments don't bear fruit. Why is she over Trooper Proctor's house? Why? So, back to that picture of Jen McCabe over Trooper Proctor's house, which, of course, they don't know each other, but she was there. Somebody ran the license plate to verify it was Jen McCabe. And the fucking district attorney signed a warrant. Judge signed it, but the DA actually friggin' had to approve it to go and look and find out who searched out Jen's license plate. So they went to the registry database, Registry of Motor Vehicles database, and they did a query, and they found out who queried D500. And it ended up coming back. And then they went and they took that person's phone and copied that phone. So they found out who queried the license plate pretty quick. But they haven't looked for the Ford Edge that the eyewitness said was there. No Ford Edge. They're not looking for that. They're looking for everything else except that. You're wasting the time and resources to find out who queried a license plate number? Legit? You woke a judge up to sign a warrant to find out who ran a plate? Dude, really? You go to that extent to find out who ran a plate. All that work to find out who ran a plate. And you can't even get the times right of when you've towed a car. Kind of shows a pattern here, doesn't it? And it's not anything that I've done. I haven't done nothing. I'm just reading documents, court documents, legal documents, PDFs, reading them all. And you're telling me that the state police have done the best investigation that they could ever do on this case? Like they're really looking for the killers. You're telling me they're putting their heart and soul into this? Really? Really? Seems to be putting a lot of heart and soul into trying to hide it, put it in the closet. Don't let people know. Oh, we're going to find out. Oh, yeah. Definitely going to find out. So, sorry for such a long response to the Boston.com article, but there's just a lot of information that they didn't add, a lot of information that another person may have added when they read the same article. This isn't anything against them in any way, like personal. It's not. It's just a different view. It's my view, which like it, love it, hate it. It's mine. It's mine. I'm kind of happy with it. I wish everyone best of luck, the best of health, and Freekarenread. There's no way she did it. Just facts aren't there. Just they're not there. I don't see enough to think anything else. But again, I'm open, and please search me out and find me so that you can tell me a different story. Tell me different things that we both can look at the facts and agree upon that maybe that an alternative thing did happen. Maybe something else did happen. I don't know. But maybe an alien came down. Don't know. But from what I do know, from the information I do have, she didn't do it. No way. No way. Wish you the best of luck and free Karen Read. Be good.